Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Steve Jones Show, Wednesday, April 25, News Radio 1070 WKOK, and Sean Carey. Glad you are here, and Steve will be here in just a moment, coming to you from the Sunbury Motors Studio. Sunbury Motors, Ford, Lincoln, Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. You can find us on social media, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter handle at Steve Jones PSU, our email. Drop us a line anytime, stevejones@WKOK.com. Also, you have access anytime to our backlist of shows when you subscribe to our Steve Jones Show podcast. Easy to do on both Apple Podcast app, iTunes, Google Play. If you do listen to us through iTunes, don't hesitate to leave us a review. Let us know you're out there listening. Appreciate that a lot. 1 week from today, Truman H. Purdy Memorial Golf Tournament, Susquehanna Valley Country Club. Looking at the advanced AccuWeather, it is looking great. If everything falls into place weather-wise between now and next Wednesday, we're going to be basking in what should be a beautiful day next week, all to benefit the greater Susquehanna Valley YMCA. 570-286-5636. Call the Y in Sunbury. Lock in your foursome. And if you don't golf, got something for you as well. Going to be select Penn State alumni, Wally Richardson, Trey Bauer, Tim Sweeney, and a few other Penn State players will be at Penn's Tavern, south of Sunbury, on Tuesday night. Special gathering, a meet and greet. So if you're a Penn State football fan, you're invited to stop into Penn's Tavern on Tuesday night. Light fare will be offered. Drop in a little donation, couple of bucks into the container for the Greater Susquehanna Valley YMCA. Also, if everything falls into place, they'll have an autographed football up for grabs in a silent auction. Mm-hmm. So that's an option for those non-golfers that want to support the Y next week. That'll be on Tuesday night.
Absolutely. I can assure you that the suit won't be there. He won't go to Maddie's for the Bucknell guy. He's not going to go to this for the Penn State thing. It's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, about time Joe Souza recognized some of this stuff. Like take attendance at Maddie's. Like who? Like this is like the Who Cares group.
Joe knows. Joe knows.
Joe knows. He knows every name in that room.
That's right. His nickname is Stealth. He's not stealth for nothing. It's like a Bucknell graduation. He may not get a chance to talk to all the senior football players that graduate at commencement, but he's stealth. He's in and out.
Yeah, he gets it done.
He does.
Bucknell's lucky to have Joe Souza.
You bet.
Good man. Good man. All right. The Rice Commission today. Let's get started with that. The Rice Commission today did release its findings. Now, do I think they did a good job? Yeah, I think they did a good job. Could they have been bolder? Yeah, I think they could have been bolder. Okay. Maybe the thought process was, hey, we'll take these steps. But I think we're at the point where bold doesn't hurt. How about that? I think we're at that point. Bold doesn't hurt. So let me give you an example of good step and versus bold. Okay? They recommend for college basketball that if you go undrafted, if you put your name into the NBA draft and you keep your name in the NBA draft and you don't get drafted, which is a distinct possibility for, I'd say 75% of the underclassmen who put their name in. I'll give you the numbers in a moment. You should be able to go back to school and keep playing. Good. Right? I've talked about that many times. Let me give you the numbers. This year, there are 231 individuals who will put their name into the NBA draft that would be considered, quote, underclassmen. Of those 231, 178 are from American colleges. The rest are overseas. Well, of those 178, 87 of them have agents. So that means they've made the move. Okay, so I've gone 231 to 178 to 87. Now here's the last part. There are only 60 spots. So you're going to have a whole bunch. You're going to have, at minimum, 27 players not drafted that sign with an agent. At minimum. And you and I both know it's going to be far more than that. There's only 60 spots. That's where this gets to be a bit on the ridiculous side. So bold is, hey, you're not drafted. Go back. Like it. Bolder would be, hey, you don't like even where you got drafted? You can go back. Like, let the student athlete have some options here. Let them have options. So I think they made a really good step. Could the step have been bigger? Yeah, it could have been bigger. But I do say that what Secretary Rice did and her commission did was certainly a step in the right direction. Now, there's 5 major areas that they looked at. 2 of them they have no control over. So 40% of this is just, hey, look, we're going to get it out there as to how we feel. I understand that, but at the same time, they can't do anything about it. The one and done rule. Right, at least you're putting it out there that when it comes to one and done, you're not in favor of it. Let them, if you want to go from high school straight in, go ahead. That's perfectly fine. It's fine to articulate it. That way everybody knows on the record where you stand. Got it. But the NCAA has 0 to do with the one-and-done rule. I always love when I hear the words college basketball's one-and-done rule. It is not college basketball's one-and-done rule. College basketball has 0 to do with the one-and-done rule. It's an NBA rule. That's when I was talking about LeBron James the other day. LeBron James is going on and on and on about a month ago about, the NCAA is corrupt and the one-and-done thing. LeBron, it's your Players Association, the one that you pay dues to, the one that you're the vice president of. You negotiated this with the owners, the people that pay your salaries. That's where it all resides. They're the ones that have to change the rule. And regardless of a recommendation like this, in all likelihood, experts will tell you that the NBA still is maybe 2 years away from changing that rule. But at least they have it down on paper. Allowing underclassmen to return to school, yeah, absolutely in favor of it. But I'd still be in favor of it, even if it meant you got drafted, you don't like we got drafted. I know this creates problems for coaches. That I do understand. Because you're trying to craft your roster, because I'd be in favor of this in football too. But you're trying to craft your roster. And it would cause logistical problems. I got that. But figure out a way to make that work. Agents should be allowed. Okay. It's currently against NCAA rules for college prospects and college players to establish a formal relationship with an agent. Okay, this is basketball. Basketball and football are like this. Baseball, you're allowed to have an advisor. Hockey, you're allowed to have an advisor. Football and basketball, you're not. I think that would be very important for the NCAA, and I agree with this. I think the commission does a great job with this. We recommend the NCAA and its member institutions develop strict standards for certifying agents and allow only those NCAA certified agents to engage with student athletes at an appropriate point in their high school careers as determined by the NCAA. And again, NCAA certified agents. They say the NCAA should appoint a vice president level executive who, among other responsibilities, would develop these standards and administer this program. Okay, I think it's a great recommendation. Overhaul the summer league so-called AAU enterprise. Again, this goes back to the NBA and the one and done. How the heck do you control the AAU? I mean, you can talk about Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas all you want. You notice everybody is taking the checks and taking their money. The only way to put them out of this thing, right, is to have the NBA, USA Basketball, and the NCAA have them put together certified, regulated summer leagues and get the apparel groups out of it. If the apparel group still wants to have it, don't allow your coaches to go to it. That they can only go to certified NBA, NCAA, and USA Basketball administered summer leagues. That's how you get them out of it. At least put them on the path to getting them out of it. And then there's the part about penalties. The part about penalties is important. Now let's go bold and bolder. All right. Increase the competition penalties for level 1 violations to allow a 5-year postseason ban. All right, now I'll get to this in a moment. I'll just at least tell you what they are. Increase the financial penalties for level 1 violations to allow loss of all revenue sharing in postseason play, including revenue from the NCAA tournament. Well, that is the only revenue you have. It's the NCAA tournament. What, you getting money from wrestling? No. Increase the penalties for a show cause order to allow bans of more than one season. Increase the restrictions on head coaches to allow bans of more than one season. Increase the penalties for recruiting visit violations to allow full-year visit bans. All right. This is where, in my opinion, they're on the right track, but they come up short. Like I said, bold and bolder. As you know, I have maintained for years, in fact, decades, that I'm sick and tired of the program is on probation. So you've got, well, let's take a basketball team. You've got 13 players on the team. One is illegally recruited, the whole thing. But the other 12, you can't go to the NCAA tournament. Whoa, hey, stop. Okay? Part of what an investigation should be is as follows. It should be who did it. Which coach was involved? Did an administrator know? Who is the player or players involved? Only go after the individuals that are guilty. For the student athlete, it should be permanent ban from playing in the NCAA. And, you know, the part about how you can go back years later and still be on scholarship and get your degree? No. You're found to be in violation. You no longer will play. Get a job in the NCAA. Nor can you come back and get your degree unless you pay like all the other students. Okay? As for the coach, there are different levels. To me, the different levels have to be 1-year ban, 5-year ban, lifetime ban. Or you can't do any of that. So 1-year ban, 5-year ban, lifetime ban. Multiple offenders, lifetime ban. right? And as for investigative bodies, they'd like an independent investigative body. That's nice, except here's the problem. Right? Why do we have all the information that we have on this NCAA investigation? Because it's the FBI doing it. Okay. What does the FBI have that an independent investigator doesn't have? Subpoena power. And that's the issue with these investigations. You don't have subpoena power. And that's a problem. If somebody doesn't want to talk, they don't have to talk. But go after the individuals that are involved. Said coach offers money to said player. I don't care if it's through a shoe company or whatever it may be. You're done. That's it. You're finished. You're out. Athlete who accepted money. Yeah, you're out. And when I mean you're out, that means you cannot come back. You know, you cannot be on scholarship to get your degree later. You can never get a job in the NCAA. Right? You're done. You're finished. If you want to go back to school and get your degree in something, get your degree, you pay for it like everybody else. Yeah. Believe me, these are, for the most part, are there certain individuals that are naive? Yes. I completely do get that. But the vast majority of these young people that are coming in are not naive. They see dollar signs. Their parents see dollar signs. And it is a problem. It is a problem. We have a lot of people who do a lot of talking. But you're done. I mean, instead of like, oh, the program's on probation, don't stop punishing people who had nothing to do with it. Punish people who have something to do with it. I found that ridiculous over the years. I'm sorry, you can't go to the tournament. But we didn't do anything wrong. Well, you know, the innocent have to pay for the sins of the few. What? Hey. And Mark Emmert says they'll vote on this a little bit later in the summer. He needs them to vote on a lot of this later in the summer because this is part of saving his job. We will come back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you, the other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years. Hi, this is Steve Jones. Afternoons 3 to 5 on WKOK. Join me Wednesday, May 2nd at the Susquehanna Valley Country Club for the 27th Annual Truman H. Purdy Memorial Golf Tournament to benefit the Greater Susquehanna Valley YMCA. There will be morning and afternoon flights for the 4-person scramble. You can win great prizes and be a part of the Steve Jones Show as we broadcast live from the tournament. For more information, call the Sunbury YMCA at 570-286-5636. I hope to see you on the course Wednesday, May 2nd.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. What Dick called about Yetur Gross Matos. For some reason, a lot of people have been asking about him. Like, okay, why? Like a bunch of other guys, like Amani Oruwariye and John Reed and whatever. No need to play him in the blue-white game. He was there in the walkthrough on Friday, so it's no injury. It's no. In fact, he didn't just have a good spring. He had a really, really good spring. Yeah, for some reason a lot of people have been asking about him. Like, okay. But a lot of guys didn't play in the darn thing on Saturday. So, I mean, Juwan Johnson, Tommy Stevens, Braylon Franklin. I mean, there's a lot of guys that didn't play. He didn't play. Sharif Miller played some. But, yeah. All right. So, all right. Time now to check in on the NFL draft. Jon Ledyard, FanRagSports.com. John, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Hey, guys. I've got Josh Rosen, number 1. He's my first quarterback on the board. And then Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma is number 2. Sam Darnold, number 3. Lamar Jackson, number 4. Josh Allen, number 5. And Mason Rudolph, number 6.
All right. There's a lot of positives about Baker Mayfield. Let me bring up something that, like, from a football point of view, that's not analytics or not combine-ish. I'm trying to think of a game where he actually brought his team back. Have you found that game? Because I can tell you right now, he had 3 shots in the Rose Bowl and didn't do any one of them.
I'm trying to think. Well, there was the Kansas State game this year. Weren't they down in that game at one point?
I guess.
I think they were down in that game early on. I think it was that game. I'd have to look through the scores. Yeah, it's tough to do when you're not down very often.
Right. I mean, and that's not their fault. But when he was down in the biggest game of the season, he had 3 shots and did not produce.
Yeah, that was an interesting game on a couple different levels, I think, because that they were really in position offensively. The game should not have really come down to what it came down to. Because they had excelled so much offensively in the first half. But that is probably, if you go back and look, the worst tackling performance by an FBS team that I've seen in ages. I mean, it was horrendous. So,
absolutely.
Yes, you want to be able to make plays in those situations, but it was a little bit tough, especially when in that overtime possession, he didn't really even get the ball in his hands in that situation.
I mean, that's where the Big 12 tackling drills came in. You're like, wait a minute. What are we doing here? No, but I'm just saying, you have to look at all phases of it. That's one where I've looked at, and to me, that's the biggest negative. Now, you're not in that position that often, but that's something at least to look at. The value of a running back. Obviously, here at Penn State, everyone knows what Saquon Barkley has meant here. There is no doubt that this is an incredible talent. Does he have value early in the draft based on how the NFL runs?
I think that he does, but I wouldn't say that it's in the top 10. I think that he is going to be a transformative type player for an offense in terms of the fact that he can do a lot of different things. You can line him up in a lot of different places. You can get impact from him in a lot of different spots. I like that about his game. What you have to ask yourself when you're taking a running back that high in the draft is, what are my primary positions in the NFL? So to me, that's quarterback, your defensive line, especially pass rushers, your offensive tackles, your offensive tackle situation, cornerback, and a lot of offenses, wide receivers. Some offenses that may favor running back there. But if you're good in those positions, I think, and you can say confidently, either we're confident in our scheme or we're confident in our players in those positions, then I think you can afford to take a running back higher than most teams would. So it's not that running backs can't go high. I think it's just about properly assessing the rest of your roster before you make a move like that.
What are there, 120 plays in a game?
Usually a little less, but could potentially.
Okay, let's say there's 100 plays in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a guy has a great game if he has 2 sacks, right? I mean, 3. If 3, it's off the charts, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. If a running back's in there, he's got 20 to 30 touches out of those 100.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm finding all this stuff interesting. Because, look, I understand. I mean, it's not like I've never watched the game before. But
to me, I'm looking at best players. Now, Bradley Chubb falls into that category of great pass rusher. What makes him that?
Well, I think it's his hand usage and the fact that he has such a sophisticated approach to it. It's not just, simple rushes or just the same thing over and over again, but he knows how to mix it up. He knows how to read his opponent. He knows how to attack off of what his opponent's doing. So there's just such variety to Bradley Chubb's game, and I think that's one of the big reasons why he's such an interesting and good prospect is that you don't see a lot of guys come out of college with that kind of polish and make the kind of impact that he's, and the kind of production that he's made. So, and teams really see him that way. Teams see him as the real deal, the big, in terms of the big picture and everything, they see him. I think you would have a lot of teams if you asked them to line up the top players in the draft and took positional value off the table. I don't think you'd see a lot of quarterbacks. I think you'd see Saquon Barkley. I think you'd see Quentin Nelson. I think you'd see Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, all very, very good points. But that's not how the league works. Rick Neuheisel, he was on a CBS Sportsnet show, and they said, "Look, make a bold prediction at the end." All right. Mm-hmm. So okay, that means you go way outside the box. Well, in his way outside the box, he said, "Okay, of the top 10 picks, 5 will be quarterbacks." Now that's bold. It's bold, but he was forced to make a bold prediction, so he came up with that. But there are going to be 5 guys taken in the top 25, aren't there?
Oh, yeah. I think there'll be 5 quarterbacks drafted in the top 15. I think Lamar Jackson goes on the board and somewhere in that range. I think either the Chargers moving up or he falls right in Arizona's lap at 15. Those are possibilities. I don't think Miami's going to pull the trigger on a quarterback unless one of the top 4 guys just falls right to him. I don't see them being super aggressive to trade up. I think they'll entertain it if one's there. But kind of like the Saints last year, where they say they were going to take Mahomes if he fell to him, and he didn't, so they took Lattimore. I think that's kind of where Miami's at. They'll take one if he's there. If not, they'll just roll with whoever's the best player on the board or potentially trade down. So I think that you'll see Jackson. Chargers definitely have interest. I think the Patriots will have interest. I think you'll see him pull out the board somewhere in that range, even if it means it's a trade-up. And then the wild card's Mason Rudolph. Is he going to make it 6 in the first round? I think I read today somewhere that 7 quarterbacks have only gone in the first 3 rounds one time before, and we could have 6 in the first round. So very unique draft, very unique in that way, and it's one of the reasons why the intrigue and the attention around this draft is bigger than ever before.
There are some people that would say that there are probably 18 to 20 legitimate first-round picks that would be first-round picks anytime, anywhere, which then brings up the next question. In your opinion, John, what is the depth like in rounds 2 and 3?
I think it's decent. I don't think this is a great draft class. It really depends on what position you're looking for, I think, and even what types of player you're looking for. You can always find good players in the later rounds if you know exactly what you're looking for, I think, at the position. And as long as it isn't, you're not going to find press man corners later in the draft with size and length and ball skills, but you're going to be able to find quality corners that can play in the nickel in the 3rd round. So I think that it just depends on kind of if you address your needs appropriately. I think most teams in situations should be okay in terms of figuring all that out. I think that, for me, I have 56 players graded in my top 100 that have early round 3 to round 1 to early round 3 type of grades. Okay. So, and that number cuts down to, if you just go second and first round grades, I have 51. So that would leave, obviously, 14 spots, 13 spots in the second round there that would be, used hypothetically on a player that doesn't have a first or second round grade for me. So I think that it's a little bit lacking once you get past the initial first tier of players. It's a really good group at the very top. Quentin Nelson, Roquan Smith, Bradley Chubb, the quarterbacks guys, Barkley. I think you have a lot of really good players in that range. I think the middle part is like I only have a handful of early day 2 grades. And I think the meat of the draft really is in the 3rd, 4th round, and I think that's where the vast majority of my players are. That range where you're solid enough to start and play for a team, but you're probably never going to be a great player, and you're probably going to be a one-contract player, and you're not going to be highly impactful. Those types of players. Yeah,
that 2nd and 3rd contract's pivotal to your life. Of the first 128 picks, which would get us to the end of round 4, John, you mentioned there are certain positions that have depth and certain positions do not. Where are the positions of depth, in your opinion, in those first 4 rounds? Where is the lack of depth in the first 4 rounds?
So I'll just go position by position. I think quarterback's really top-heavy, like I said at the beginning.
Right.
Once you get those first guys off the board, that's pretty much always going to be the case, though. Once the top guys come off the board, you're hardly ever getting really quality guys in the middle rounds. I know some people like Mike White and Kyle Aletta, and I just think that they're guys, and they'll be backups in the NFL.
Yeah.
Your running back is a very deep position. There's no question about it. You're going to be able to find running backs, different schemes, different skill sets, but you're going to be able to find those guys later. Your wide receiver is very weak at the top. A lot of guys that can be 2s and 3s for you, I think. No big deals. Guys that can contribute to the roster, can be adequate targets, but nobody that's going to be game changers, I think, in the 3rd and 4th rounds. Tight end's a weak class. I don't have anybody with a round 1 or grade. Tackle, for me, is a weak class. Depends on who you see at tackle and who you see at guard. But I see Mike McGlinchey really as the only quality tackle in the draft. I'm intrigued by a couple other guys, but he's really the only quality guy for me. Interior offensive line is probably the best group. I have 12 guys with day 1 or day 2 grades, so 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round grades, 12 guys in that range. So I really like that group. I don't like interior defensive line at the top a lot at all. I like Maurice Hurst a lot. After that, it really falls off for me. Got a couple guys in the round 2 range, but I don't think you're going to find a lot of impactful pass rusher type, behind the line of scrimmage type impact players in this class. The edge defender's kind of the same way. At the top, Bradley Chubb, love Harold Landry. I think Josh Sweat's going to be such a better NFL player than he was in college. Davenport's intriguing. After that, I think it really kind of falls off with most of the edge defender group. You're going to struggle to find really good players later in the draft. Linebacker's a good class, but I still think it's a little bit top-heavy. Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edmonds, and Van Der Esch are all top 20 picks. That's more than linebackers than you typically see in that range. So if that happens, and it looks like it will happen, I think you're going to see linebackers get reached for early, and then you're going to see the position dry up pretty quickly. Corner, if you need nickel corners, it's a great class. If you need outside corners with size and length, it's not a good class at all. So it just depends on what you need. Safety is weird, too. You're going to have a lot of big, strong safety, slot defender, man coverage type safeties, not a lot of the deep safety, free safety, ball hawk types. Jesse Bates is kind of the only guy of the top safeties that really played in that role much in college. So, his value might get pushed up the board into round 1 just because of that fact. So it's a weird safety class, not the type of safeties we're typically used to seeing, but a lot of guys that are really good fits for the modern-day NFL.
Over recent weeks, we've heard a lot of names. So when you've sat down and you've put together your draft thoughts, John, give me a name or two that either hasn't been brought up by a lot of people that you actually really like and you're surprised their names aren't coming up, and who would that be?
Well, I think a guy that and not that his name's not being mentioned, it is, but I have Sony Michel as the top 10 player in the class. I really think he's fantastic. Actually, this is probably not the best radio station to say this on, but I actually had Michel with a higher tape grade than Saquon Barkley. Barkley's combine pushed him back up over top of Michel. But to me, I think Michel is an inside runner, did a lot more than Barkley in terms of not having Barkley. When you watched a lot of his production, he created on his own, right? He's an unbelievable athlete. He'd bounce the ball outside. He'd outrun people. He'd do things like that. So, I think that's all well and good with Barkley, but with Michel, a lot of the time, he was within structure. He hit his reads when he needed to. He got through gaps. He got skinny. He ran with power. And he was patient. He has a great feel for it as an inside runner. I'd like to see more of that from Barkley. Nobody compares to Barkley in terms of the splash plays and the receiving, and obviously the overall athleticism. So that moved him slightly ahead of Michel in my grading process. But I think that Michel is going to be one of the best players from this class, and we're going to look back, and teams are going to wish that they'd taken him a little bit higher. He might still go in the first round. There's kind of been some buzz. He could be the number 2 back off the board. There's been buzz he could fall deep into the second, so because of injury concerns. So I still think he's getting some hype, but I think that he's a guy that we'll look back on. Alvin Kamara we're going to look back on, right, for years and say this guy should have been one of the best players in the class. That happens every year with players. We act like the guys at the top are the only guys that will ever be good. The guys that get drafted at the top are the only guys that will ever be good. That's rarely the case. When you redraft boards, things look a lot different. And I think when we look back in a couple of years and redraft this draft, I think we're going to wish Sony Michel had been higher on our boards.
Well, of course, like Kamara and Hunt out of Kansas City, I've had people say, see the value you can get later. Yeah, but they went to playoff teams. Right, so part of it's what situation you go into. I mean, suddenly out of nowhere, that's the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, and it's not the Tennessee Titans offensive line, so it's a little bit different deal. Now let's flip it to the other side. I know every once in a while I'll hear names and players I've seen in person, and I'll sit back and say, okay, I don't see it. Is there somebody along the way where you're saying to yourself, boy, I've heard this name over and over and over again, but you know what, I don't really see it?
I mean, Josh Allen's one, the quarterback from Wyoming.
Well, I've seen him play, and I agree with you. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it goes back to quarterback evaluation. We're doing quarterback evaluation backwards still, and we should have learned our lessons from now because we've had a lot of prospects come in with a lot of the same traits Josh Allen's had and a lot of the same traits, and missing a lot of the same traits he's also missing. And the things that really matter at quarterback, like accuracy and ball placement and mental processing and decision-making and mechanics and poise in the pocket, those are all things Allen doesn't show. He's great athleticism, he's great size, he has a strong arm, but those things are secondary to the importance listed and why we're still kind of seeing that process backward when so few guys at that position come into the NFL as raw as he is and become anywhere close to what they're hoped to be. So I think that's the danger with Josh Allen. And why you mentioned landing spot as being really important. It's important for everybody in the draft. It really is. It's crucial. There are some players, sure, that are transcendent to that are probably going to be good no matter what, but especially for quarterbacks, man, if you go behind a terrible offensive line with terrible supporting cast, without a running game, with the coaching staff that doesn't know what they're doing, which was the situation in Cleveland last year and probably will be again this year, then I think you're going to be in trouble. I think so. That's why I really hate Josh Allen as a fit in Cleveland because they couldn't develop Deshaun Kaiser, and Kaiser's tape in college was definitely better than Josh Allen's. I wasn't a big Kaiser fan, but there was no comparison between the two of them. So if you can't develop Kaiser, I just don't have a lot of confidence you're going to suddenly be able to develop Allen. And that really, Hugh Jackson doesn't have a reputation for developing quarterbacks either that are raw. So I think that, there is a big element of risk there if they would take Allen. I don't think they're going to take Allen, but that's just kind of how I would see that situation if it played out.
Great stuff, John. Really, really enjoyed it a lot. Thanks so much for coming on with us.
Hey, no problem. Thank you guys for having me. Enjoy the draft.
All right, Tony Knopp coming up next half hour as we continue on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors. All right, welcome back. Great to have you with us on the show. And Tony Knopp next half hour. I'm sure we'll bring up the World Cup. We'll probably bring up the Olympics. We'll probably bring up a few other things. Do I dare bring up the witness protection program?
No, I think you've had other opportunities to bring that up to Tony about the former producer of this show, so you can let that slide this time.
I mean, yeah, because the witness protection program is where IndyCar resides. I mean, it's just it's unbelievable.
Hey, we're about a month away from the big race. Getting closer.
It's no offense, it's the only race.
Right. Well, I said the big race.
Well, I mean, it's interesting on NASCAR. NASCAR has plummeted. I mean, NASCAR is doing okay, but it's not as hot as it was 10, 15 years ago. Well, I do want to ask him about the Tiger Woods effect, because I'm sure that that's got money people rolling in left and right. His effect has been remarkable, really. You think about it, it is remarkable what he's meant. So Tony's in the next half hour that could last for hours. All right. Great to have you with us on the show today. As we continue here on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf on News Radio 1070 WKOK.